In Parshas Vayechi, which is the last part, which is the last parsha of Sefer Bereshis, but a lot goes on. One thing I first would like to talk about, we see that Yaakov, that he gives right before he dies, he gives one extra part of land. He gives it to Yosef, and Yosef's obviously descendants, and he says that he got it from his sword and from his bow. And so what's the name of the town that he gives? He gives the town of Shechem. So what's significant about this whole scenario? Like, why is it being mentioned here? So if we go back in different midrashim, where is Shechem mentioned before? Shechem is mentioned before earlier in the Torah. That what happens is Shechem is the son of Hamor. They own obviously the city of Shechem, and Shechem sees Dinah, which is one of Yaakov's daughters, and he rapes Dinah and he takes her for a wife, and then later on and Shimon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, go and they, tell him, okay, you all have to circumcise yourselves. We don't do this. And then while everything's going on, they wipe out all Shechem, the whole city, Shechem and Hamor, his father, and the whole city. However, Dinah gets pregnant from that episode, and she goes down to Mitzrayim. She ends up having a daughter. The daughter ends up being born. The daughter is a lady by the name of Asnas. That's what they tell us. And Asnas ends up being Yosef's wife. So now Yosef's wife is the daughter of Shechem. So now later on, so now we see what's the connection. There's no one else alive in Shechem. Yaakov's family, Shimon and Levi, decimated Shechem. So now it's given rightfully back to Dinah as her family, which is Asnas, which is Yosef. And what does it mean? And what does it mean he took him by his sword and his bow? So he didn't fight, his two children fought. So you could say, okay, he's speaking as far as for his children. But another way to do it is what's the difference between a sword and a bow? A sword is something that you sharpen both sides, it's very close and you're very on top of it and it's very fierce, as opposed to a bow is more intense. You could go aim at things further on. And there are allusions to like prayer, as far as for Yaakov's prayers. And that sometimes your prayer is very intense and you need to write that in there. Sometimes you pull back and you put a lot of kavanah, a lot of thought, a lot of worry, a lot of intensity into it, and then you should in your prayers go very far. And you see these are the prayers that Yaakov did, and you see that his prayers were answered, and everything happened. A few 100, 200 years later is when Dinah really gets back the land. So you person may not see their prayers answered immediately, but your prayers are always heard, and your prayers are always answered. Sometimes it just takes some time, and you need to have your eyes open to see how they're being answered. They're not always answered in the way that we always expect.